Good evening, everyone. It's been a while since you, me, and a glass of wine have chatted together. Did anyone else have a fixation with things as a kid, like cars or Barbies or something like that? I feel like we all kind of had that, right? Today, I want to talk about those childhood obsessions or fixations that we had. I did a little research on the topic before chatting with you all tonight, so I have some interesting nuggets of information to share with you about these childhood fixations. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my own. So these fixations or obsessions that we had, psychologists call them childhood intense interests. Interestingly, it's less common than I thought it was. It only impacts about 1/3 of children, and it's more commonly found in boys than it is girls. And these obsessions tend to fall along gendered stereotypes. The thinking here is that some of the cultural marketing towards gender stereotypes we have significantly impact the childhood obsessions or fixations or intense interests that kids have growing up. In the research that I was looking at, it seems most common that these interests start at 18 or so months old and continue until you hit the first school age years, and you sort of grow out of it after that. This was not my experience. My fixation lingered for a long time, and it continues to pop up every once in a while. I get a little hit of nostalgia for what I was into, and I spend like 2 weeks diving down a YouTube rabbit hole of my fixation, and then I'm good again. But it still pops up now and then, and I was well into middle school before I got over it. So if you did not experience some of these childhood fixations, I'm going to read off for you some of the most common ones. We have vehicles, trains, machines, dinosaurs, balls. Interestingly enough, okay. No judgment. Live animals, Barbies and dolls, books and reading, dress up, miscellaneous, and idiosyncratic. Okay. My childhood fixation is not on that list. It is not vehicles. It is not Barbies. It is not balls. And honestly, I feel an ounce of pride for it being uncommon enough to not be some of the major things that kids were interested in. My fixation was Titanic.
Flying.
Specifically the sinking part. Now, look, I know this has just come back into popularity given the submarine incident, but I was vibing with Titanic in like 2008, okay? So get on my level, okay? I remember the first time I ever learned about Titanic. It was through one of those Magic Treehouse books. They had one on Titanic. I read it, I loved it, and ever since then I was hooked. I was like, I have to know more about this boat. Growing up, I loved the ship. I loved it so much. I watched documentaries, I read books, I dreamed of watching the James Cameron movie like every night. And I would not stop talking about this boat in school. I wouldn't stop doing it. I have some of the books and movies that I used to read. This magazine is from the 100th anniversary, 2012. I was 10 years old. I was into this classic National Geographic Secrets of the Titanic DVD. I could not get enough. I remember like begging my mom to let me watch the movie. Of course, she was number one concerned about some of the draw me like one of your French girls, Jack scenes in the movies, and two, concerned about my interest in watching over 1,000 people die in a movie. So I was like 9. But after years of begging, she finally relented, and I remember this moment so fondly. We sat down together, we watched the Titanic movie in full, all 3 hours of it, and I could not get enough. I was so mesmerized by everything that happened. Of course, I was like 8 or 9, so she skipped over all the steamy scenes, but I did not care about those scenes. I was there for one thing and one thing only, and that was sinking ship. I was into the sinking parts, okay? My mom was so nervous about me seeing some inappropriate scene for my age that she hid the DVD from me. And little did she know, after seeing that movie and loving it so much, I found where she hid it. I took it without her knowing, and I would watch it over and over and over again. She was so concerned about me seeing those steamy scenes, but what she also didn't know was that all I did was put the DVD in, go straight to scene selection, and click on the scene with the iceberg and watch from that point onwards. I don't know what that means. I just liked I wanted it so bad. But it wasn't just the sinking I was into. I mean, that was like most of it, but it wasn't just the sinking I was into. Anything and everything about that ship I knew. I could walk the halls of that ship and know exactly where I was going. I knew how many passengers there was on there. I knew the names of like all the famous ones. There used to be a thing where I found on a form once the color of Captain Smith's underwear the night it sank. Was that fact true? Probably not. But I can tell you right now, his underwear was red the night it sank. I used to make Lego Titanic ships, paper Titanic ships. I even drew the Titanic on an Etch-a-Sketch once, okay? I would celebrate the anniversary of the sinking every year. April 14th, I was there. I was celebrating not the fact that it sunk, but just the legacy of the ship and the people. And I think honestly, looking back on it, what drew me to this tragedy was not that it was this huge thing where thousands of people died, but it was the polar opposite of like the peacefulness of it all with the violence and how all of the passengers acted, or the majority of the passengers acted with dignity. This big human machine that was unsinkable was sunk by this little iceberg in the water. It's just so crazy. It's insane. And to think that most of the passengers by some point in the sinking knew that they probably weren't going to make it out and still kept their dignity and their honor intact to let women get into lifeboats first, that was really amazing to see. I think that kind of character was probably a good influence on me growing up, even if it's kind of weird to be in the context of a sinking ship with people dying. I don't know. Now that I've grown a bit older, of course, that like obsessive phase has ended, but once or twice a year, I will go down a deep dive on Titanic YouTube and watch all the videos again and watch the movie or something like that, because I'm still, of course, super interested in it. Semi-recently, it also popped up in my Berkeley life. It's kind of an ongoing joke I have with friends that I wish I was there on that voyage and that I was born 100 years too late. A few times during some particularly intense computer science projects, I would put on the real-time sinking video in the background, and it was just sort of something for us to look at when the code got too crazy for us to think about. And my friends, they were genuinely interested in seeing it and like learning about it. I don't think they'd ever thought about the Titanic like that, but when you're watching that real-time sinking video, it's kind of cool to be like, oh, what is this going on? And then I can be like, oh, this is what was happening at this time with these people. It was a fun dynamic. In May, my friends threw me a surprise graduation party. And a few months before, I had joked with my best friend Kareem that under no circumstance do I see the need for a themed party. Like, why? It's so stressful. There's no reason. Just let me dress up nice and like go and be hot. You know, like why do we need a theme? That's so stressful. And Kareem, he found the one theme that I would like for a surprise graduation party. And that was Titanic. He threw a Titanic themed graduation party. It was good in that I didn't know the party was happening, so there was no way I had to prepare. I didn't have to dress up for it, even though I would have rocked that shit so good. But it was so much fun. We made some Titanic cocktails that were served on the night of the sinking. We looked at some gameplay from a Titanic game as well. We had that playing in the background with some 1920s music. It was so thoughtful, and it was a lot of fun. So it was genuinely the best night of my life. I got for a moment my little 9-year-old heart Titanic dream made in real life. So it was awesome. And yeah, so that's why I've been thinking about the Titanic recently. I'm almost done with my wine. Wow, I really feel like I drank that quick. Anyways, that's it. I finished the wine. We're done. The video is over. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and share for more of these podcasts. Leave a comment and tell me, what was your childhood obsession? I want to know. I'll respond for sure. I bet it's pretty fucking awesome. I hope you have a nice night. I'm feeling this already, and it was just one glass. Okay. Goodbye. Goodbye.